Welcome everyone to technically this is the second edition of our recruiter therapy broadcast. The very first one we did was in our very own outbound recruiting conference that was hosted at the end of August. So Steve Levy and I are going to be the host. Consider Kunwar as our Steve Higgins. You know, he's kind of like our sidekick. But for those of you who don't know me, I'm Shannon Pritchett. I run marketing at hireEZ. A lot of you have known me just because I've worked about every single job in recruiting. So let's give marketing a chance, right? And Steve, who are you?
I am Steve Levy, and I'm doing a little consulting right now. I, like many people here, are in somewhat of a job search mode. I have a slightly different, I'm a different phase of life than many, and I can be very, very particular with what I want. But nonetheless, as some know, I am an incurable a job search fan. I am an incurable critique of really, really bad TA. And I also happen to dabble in making a Zoom background. So if anyone likes these, um, and want to pimp your Blue Devil profile, just let me know. I'll do it for free.
It's actually going to be the focus of what we're talking about today. So this is recruiter therapy, and it's exactly what it sounds, right? We're going to host these often, and what Steve and I are going to be here for. And maybe sometimes I'll use Steve, sometimes maybe he'll replace me, sometimes I'll replace him, right? We'll bring on guests. We'll figure out who this is. But we really want to turn this into your hour, and we want to be here to help because Steve and I feel like since we've been in this industry for over 10 years, that's what we've been. We've been therapists. And so we want to get back into doing that. We want to help people. We want to talk about issues. We want to make people more comfortable again, right? We kind of missed what we used to have. And so let's get it going again. So
You know
anything
what's
you want to
interesting?
add to
I'm looking at the webinar chat, and there's some people in here that I'll take, for example, Dan Levine. Dan is he lives about an hour and a half north of me. I think Dan, you still live in Croton. But I remember when Dan worked at AOL, I think it might have been the mid 90s
so
or
long?
so, where I did a training session on sourcing for him and Ben. I won't mention Ben's last name. But there's some people here like Paul DeBettignies, the Minnesota headhunter, an incurable community fan who was just given back to to his people continuously for I guess about 25 years. And so it's very, very nice to have these people here and part of it. But being that I'm also a job seeker, one of the things that I've noticed the most, and we know that, Shannon and I have been connected on the conference scene, SourceCon, for many, many years. Spoken at conferences, quite frankly, around the world. But the older I get, and I'm going to stay straight, I am 64. I am still younger than Jerry Crispin, but I'm not as old as my 100-year-old dad. So I am not going anywhere anytime soon. But the older I get, the more I crave two things and two things only in work, and particularly how it applies to talent acquisition, and that is simplicity and honesty. And if you follow the talent board, the work that Kevin Grossman is doing, and if you're not subscribed in TA, if you're not subscribed to the talent board, the thetalentboard.org, you're missing some great data, which quite frankly, I looked at the August Pulse report for them, and candidate engagement, NPS, is just doing a nosedive. It's some of the worst we've ever seen in the industry, and particularly the concept of ghosting.
Mm-hmm. We got a question about ghosting.
We have
It's getting worse.
It's getting worse, and we need to find some sort of, not really a cure for it, but we need to have rules of engagement and things that we can do, things that we can suggest, recommend to get. Frankly, there are many overworked TA organizations, and the folks there, because of a lack of recruiter enablement, don't know how to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, they're sticking their head in the sand, not responding even after interviews.
Yeah.
I can't, that it boggles my mind that this takes place, given all that we've talked about for the last 20 plus years.
Well, do poor candidate experience and ghosting go hand in hand? Like who
Well,
do you
this goes back to my whole engineering days. One of my first engineering lessons was learned in September '76. Literally my first engineering course, in which the professor Johnny Outwater, long departed, wonderful professor, said the words that have stuck with me ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And that structure begets function.
Oof. Yep.
And so if the foundation is not strong, if the building isn't architected well, it doesn't matter how you perfume personas and brand and stuff like that. Eventually the house is going to collapse. And I think this declining candidate engagement is symptomatic of other things. It's symptomatic of, I got to call out, bad TA leadership or inexperienced TA leadership, in which you say, they're not saying, look, our primary goal is to take care of the human beings, because a bad candidate experience is a lost customer.
Yes, but Steve, we're not here to talk about candidate therapy. We're here to talk about recruiter
therapy. Yeah.
Yes.
And what can our friends do? The ones who really who are out of work, who are applying for jobs day in, day out,
and getting ghosted. Yes.
Or not getting responded. They're doing things like they're applying for a job on a Friday night, and on Saturday morning they get the rejection.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think, my personal take right now, and this is why we wanted to do recruiter therapy, is that I think it's still going to get uglier before it gets better. I think we did so much over hiring, in 2021, and people are still trying to figure things out. And so I think everyone's going to be asked to do less with more. And what I was most surprised about is when all these layoffs happened, you started to see recruiters get back to work right away. And I think that was bad. And not saying that you shouldn't have taken a job right away, I would have done the same thing. But I think it was just those companies were slower at the layoffs. So I think companies still need to be able to find its niche. I think the challenge needs to be put back on the heads of TA to really figure out exactly what they want and exactly what they're looking for, right? And I think that's what recruiters want. They want transparency, right? They want to be known how they're going to fit into the organization. They want to know what is a real rec and what is a fictional rec, right? They don't want to apply to a job just to get their name thrown in the hat for a position that's going to open 6 months later, right? And it's like, and I feel like when you have a job, you feel like you have the power. And I think and it's like, you're right, but really it's a responsibility. And it's, I don't know. To me, it's just, it's to hear about that and to hear about what recruiters are going through right now, it is very, very, very upsetting. And I honestly think you kind of still need to, what I'm trying to say is, I think there's a lot of ugly that still needs to be weeded out with organizations for the good ones to get back into the market. And that's where I think is going to take a little bit more time. I don't think much more time, but I think there's been a lot of people on the sidelines because of that. And that makes me sick, because I've seen so many talented people, yourself included, that it's like, doesn't make sense why you're not working. And I know a lot of people who shouldn't be working that are. So it's, again, still trying to figure it out.
Well, that's sort of, there's a lot to unpack from what you just said and how it relates to what our friends in our community can do. I mean, first and foremost is, you have to view, I think, applying for a job as the chance to obtain a data point to how the company is actually doing recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
If you apply for a job and you see that the process is just, untenable, it's mind-numbing, collect your LinkedIn profile, then upload a resume and things of that nature, and then whatever things that you have to go through it, and then you receive a an auto decline, fairly quickly, what do? What are your options? I liken it, if you're taking you're at an airport and you lost your luggage. It wasn't too long ago we'd go ballistic on social media, tagging the company and saying, "Where the hell is my luggage?" Why are we so reticent to do that when it comes to a similar really, it's a similar situation?
I think
Um,
it's fair.
why are we afraid to, tag, go to LinkedIn? I mean, what's the worst that can
Why
happen?
are we afraid? See, that's a very good point.
I don't know. You see me. I mean, I've been collecting data because I'm selectively applying for jobs. I'm not necessarily a big fan of applying. I mean, then I'll get, we have cyber stalking skills. We can get their phone numbers and shit like that, and we can call them and email them. My FJAR word, I'm sorry. But I will write a post and I'll tag the company and I'll tag the head of TA and say, look, I'm not doing this to knock you, but I'm collecting data. I want to give you feedback on if it's bothering me, can imagine what it's doing to thousands of others.
Well, read the chat. People are afraid to burn bridges, right? Is
I
it, but didn't they burn a bridge with us? Like, is it bad to publicly call out somebody for a poor experience?
but I question there's a belief that we maintain this little black book of DNRs, do not recruit. And we don't. We really don't. Granted, there are some real people with some unusual experiences that we do not want to bring into our organization, but that's not related to, their expertise in TA.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm truly the head of talent acquisition, and I'm not addressing declining candidate engagement, candidate experience, I'm hurting the company. I would think
I
that
would agree.
it's
I'll
how
tell
you
you what,
do
I
it.
have a story about this. I had a cousin who applied for a job at Intuitive Surgical. And he called me up. He's like, I need your help. This job is absolutely perfect for me. I really want this job. I keep getting ghosted by the recruiter. And I was like, Intuitive, Brad Cook's company? I was like, there's no way Brad Cook's recruiters are ghosting somebody. So I was like, well, I just so happen to be friends with the TA who just retired as the head of TA for Intuitive. So I called Intuitive, where our good friend Mary Brogan also works. I called Brad and I said, hey, can you tell me what's going on with this position? And he's like, he's like, it's a mess. I don't even know. We're trying to figure out what we're doing with sales, blah, blah, blah. And I go, well, my cousin's having a bad experience with the recruiter. And he goes, explain more. And I was like, because keep in mind, you can see all the stuff in the system, right? It's like, So I told him exactly what I said. He's like, unexcusable. Let me get to the bottom of this. And so dug deep. And it was like the recruiter was ghosting because they didn't know what to tell them. And so Brad wrote me this long apology note, like drop the ball, shouldn't have happened. So glad you brought this to my attention. And then personally called my cousin and all some of the other candidates just to apologize on their behalf. And so like he turned a negative experience around. By the way, this was like a year ago. And I thought that was very commendable of him. So, I mean, they weren't ghosting recruiters, but they were ghosting candidates. And it was like just a miscommunication. Like no one knew what the position was, it on hold? Was it not? So like interviews get scheduled and then fall through. And it was like, that happens, right? We all experience that with those positions. So if you honestly just don't know what to tell somebody, hey, it's a shit show in here. Hang tight, I promise. But after the conversation with Brad, he was like, I really wish this was more of an opportunity right now. It's clearly not. I'd like, he's like, but I am going to pursue other things, and he ended up working somewhere else. But like, you know, there was a perfect example of someone who's getting treated unfairly, who was able to rectify the situation, and they both departed on good terms, right? So my cousin went and found another job. He still holds Intuitive in high regards. I hold Brad and his team in high regards for how they rectified the situation. I think that's a good example of a way where you can do it where you're not publicly bashing somebody.
Yeah. I just put the post I wrote back, I guess 3 months ago. as a
I
link
like
to the
Donna.
chat.
Donna needs to be a guest. uh,
Uh,
she does this shit show and it will
and
continue.
but I agree. And but
My
no,
spirit animal right
but I'm
there.
posing to you, I didn't call out. I merely called out. I presented the situation, and to these companies, if you want to, I know people there. That's the part that's odd, and they know me, and
Yeah.
they still, which tells me they're not looking at LinkedIn.
Oh
They're
yeah.
not looking at posts.
Yeah. Uh, y'all, it's happened to me. I mean, not too long ago, I had actually applied for some roles that I was interested in, and I decided to apply before reaching out to the manager. So like, oh, they'll see my name, they'll know who I am, they know me, like, you know, and crickets, 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 crickets. So then I
Yeah.
email the people I know over there, crickets, 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 and I like they eventually come back around. But it's like so I've been there, I've known, and even if you don't know them, you still, I mean, even if you know them, you still get ghosted. So it's sometimes it's just again, it just could be, the complexity of what's going on internally.
But
But
still, but nonetheless, I'm not a believer in just sitting there and it's like, please, sir, may I have another whack.
right.
We have to, there's no black book, and people don't go and say, I'm to the people in the chat here who are saying, and it was Gwen and it was Rob and a few others. Thank you for your comments. You're not burning your bridges. You're offering your
Sure. Yes,
expertise.
I would agree with that. I don't think you're actually burning a bridge. I think we look at that analogy as burning a bridge, but in reality, I don't think you are. And I think if you said something and spoke up, I don't think you're burning the bridge with that company. And it's not going to be a company you really probably want to work for anyways. I'm not saying that recruiters should do it. I think I'd be interesting to see people do it. And let's be honest, candidates will burn that bridge in a heartbeat.
And
So
so at what point is like, if we're just look, let's call some of the factors, then I do have some more ideas on what we can do. If you're either part of the solution, you're part of the problem for the profession. There's
yeah,
you may not like it,
guys.
but there's really no other way to address that. You're either part of the solution, you're part of the problem. I'm just reading some of the comments. This chat is gold today, and we're gonna have a good amount of stuff here in quotes that we're gonna be able to, I think, write some pieces for the industry and fellow TA leads to grasp upon. But you got to help others. That's part of what a community does. We're not going if by the way, people like David Marr, who's doing great things to help the community and
Great things.
great things. We know a lot of people, so apply for a job, but also, quite frankly, you can find their head if it's what you can figure out who the person reports to. It's not too hard to get their work email and stuff. Or, worst case scenario, like get their cell phones and send them a text message. By the way, you realize how they don't like getting text messages, but they don't mind us sending text messages to candidates. We'll get back to that one sometime. But you have to take a convergent validity, hit it from a couple of sources. And quite frankly, if it really is something that really speaks to you and no one's getting back to you, doing a public post and tagging people, I mean, there's no downside. It's called marketing.
Young's on. Hi, Young. Sorry.
And let me see what else we have here in the chat.
You know what's interesting about LinkedIn? It's since I switched to marketing, I only get marketing job inquiries. It's kind of funny. Now it's like the second I switch, it's like, I mean, maybe I'm a talented marketer and I don't know it, but yeah, it goes to the point.
I mean, Erica Stevenson has a nice comment. You'd be a great fit for my software engineer opening in mails proves that recruiters don't look at profiles on LinkedIn.
Do they have the time to?
I am shocked that recruiters.
We were talking about this at dinner. Josh Lax and I had a good conversation about this. when LinkedIn Recruiter first came out, how it was like taking candy from babies, right? Because people who were joining weren't used to like recruiters. Like it wasn't like a job board like it is today. It wasn't like an inbound motion.
Yeah.
It was like, it was pure like, okay, we're all putting our resumes out there now. And so when a recruiter would reach out to you, like you guys remember the heyday back then, or the early days, I should say, people would like automatically respond, and then that person would likely get hired. Like you just had to look at like 3 or 4 profiles, pick the one you wanted, and like you were going to hire that person.
Yeah.
So that's like a completely new way, right? And Steve, let's do some education about LinkedIn, right? As because we got a lot of questions sent to us about LinkedIn, so like that's kind of the topic today. I don't think everyone knows how the LinkedIn algorithm works, because we did get one question around LinkedIn search specifically. And yes, LinkedIn does limit your ability to find candidates based on how much money you give them, right? It kind of makes sense. You can always do the next ray around it and stuff like that too. But again, I don't know. This is how LinkedIn's algorithm works, right? It's all on activity. So let's say you're a normal person on LinkedIn. Steve, you told me this the other day. What was the average amount of time a user spends a month on LinkedIn?
Yeah, and it used to, a couple of years back, from LinkedIn, it was 17 minutes. It's 17. This is the entire user population of 17 billion people that they have. Now it's
1 billion, they said yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, what's the minutes?
9 minutes now.
9 minutes. Okay, great. You do a lot of things in 9 minutes, but so within that, LinkedIn's algorithm is based on how active you are within their platform. So keep that in mind. So when you're doing a regular search and you're seeing and you're trusting their algorithm, it's not based on keywords within the profile. It's not based on anything. The people you're seeing towards the top is how active they currently are. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because the more active you are, generally, unless you're a recruiter or salesperson, generally that means that you're probably looking for a job. So they're trying to push kind of more of the active applications towards the top. But generally, we also see a lot of success going back to the whole LinkedIn mindset and recruiting passively. If you go to the bottom of the list, right, if you kind of reverse the search a little bit, those are going to be the candidates that probably aren't contacted as much. Now, your response rate might drop. You might not get a lot of opens. You might get stuff like that too. But remember, there's no AI, despite what LinkedIn tells us. There's no AI on their platform whatsoever. So it's a manual algorithm based on usage, not necessarily skills. So, and that explains so much when you like dive into it further. But I always challenge people, if you can, don't necessarily start at the top of your results. Start at the bottom of your results first. So that's a great way to get those candidates, in my opinion, that aren't getting bombarded by so many recruiters over and over again. Just a way to make your message stand out a little bit more. Now, if you use, and again, I'm going to bring in hireEZ since we're sponsoring this. If you use a tool like ours, a product like ours, keep in mind our algorithm is based on machine learning components and AI. So we are going to match you. We have no idea how active people are on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and Google or wherever we found your information. So ours is going to be based on the likelihood of this person matching. So it's a different algorithm. That's why you see it used differently. But I think it's important, if you're going to search LinkedIn, you got to understand how the algorithm is used, which means, again, start looking towards the bottom of the list. Steve, what do you think about that idea?
It's like anything else. It's you're here. The little quick reality check. For most all recruiters on the planet, all folks who recruit using LinkedIn and LinkedIn Recruiter, it's fishing. The same fishing rod, the same line, the same hook, the same bait, the same place, the same time of the day, the same day of the week, etc., as everyone else. Pretty soon, you have these people who are being bombarded. It's almost like a Stockholm syndrome. The prisoners, it's a horrible thing. I hope this email finds you well. I hope this AI generated email finds you well.
Never say that ever again.
Ever
Everyone,
again, people,
if you want to get one
ever.
thing out of recruiter therapy again, never say, I hope this finds you well again.
And so, to your point, starting someplace else, it's just your chances. Firstly, competition. People aren't looking at it. It's the shiny object that's right in front of them.
Well, it's easy to use. Let's be
It's
honest.
so
It's
easy.
our
It's
footprint. It's our
so
security
easy.
blanket. It's Linus's blanket. Come on. Like, we know it well. It's not going to go away. But that's first thing. Second thing, another question that we got. I hope that answered that question about searching LinkedIn and connections and stuff like that too. By the way, a good person to help you X-ray LinkedIn is Young Kim, who's on here. Or Jung, sorry.
Jung.
I always said Young, but it's Jung, like
Jung.
jungle,
It's
right?
Jung.
I know, but it's like, man, I've known Jung and Jimmy on here, and you and Paul. I think for like, you guys have seen me since I was a baby recruiter. So I love this list. But anyways, we had another question about connection requests. I want to get the chat going with this one. Okay. Do you accept every single connection request that someone sends you as a recruiter?
No.
I do.
Well, here's why I don't.
Could you expand?
Here's why I don't. Number one, I have my.
Oh my God, I'm anomaly. Okay.
Well,
Sorry.
firstly, to Mike Wiley's point, I mean, I am getting close to 30,000, and I have to be judicious. So I'm looking
I'm at
at
27, so I'm fine. I'm 90% there.
Okay, fine. The reason I don't, I will look. Firstly, I get I guess some 15, 16, 17 requests a day. And when I put a post up like it today, it just goes through the roof. I don't accept when it's clear that this moment I hit accept. 5 minutes later, I'm going to get we can help you with staff augmentation stuff. I'm sorry, I don't do that. I just don't.
Marketing. We'll help you build your pipeline.
We'll help you build your pipeline.
Yeah.
We'll help you build offshore stuff.
Yeah.
I go, you've got to be kidding me. Number two, if it's clear, Pete Radloff and I have been doing this for about 10 years. We can smell a fake profile, but just by the picture and the language a mile off. Obviously I don't accept the ones who want to have a relationship with me. That's kind of sketchy, but I see, I try to balance it out between people in recruiting, people in tech, people from different venues. If I accept anyone who someone refers to me.
Put a lot of thought into this.
I mean, it's hard to believe that I can still think after all these years, but there is thought to it. When you build your network, there has to be a thoughtfulness to it.
So the damage of accepting everyone is you guys are worried about maxing out on connections. But what's so bad about maxing out your connection requests? Like, who are you worried you're not going to be able to connect with on LinkedIn? What am I missing here?
No, personally, I'm not worried. It's just it really is minimizing the follow-ups with I want to sell you something. That's really what drives me most of all. I accept the railway engineers from I think Uzbekistan or something like that this morning or something. I'm fine. I'm doing it. If I can help someone, I can help somebody. And I mean, that's ultimately what it's about. If I'm recruiting, I'm not using LinkedIn Recruiter as my primary source. You kidding me?
Like when people ask me, "Hey, Shannon, you're connected to blah blah blah. Can you help make an introduction?" I'm like, I have no idea who that is.
I mean, I have some people. I'm LinkedIn user number 204,097. If you don't know how to find your LinkedIn user number,
I don't know.
Go to your LinkedIn page, view page source, and search for the word member. You'll see member equal, and then you'll see a number. That's your member number, in case you're wondering. So I've got people who I've been connected with since, like 2004 when I came on board. And sadly, I know many who are retired. The ones who are retired, I've gotten rid of. Sadly, there are people who have passed. With few exceptions, I've removed them.
I found my member number.
No, it's not. That's spam.
That's interesting.
That's a spam number from Mike Chewidian's area from York, Pennsylvania.
So I'm number, is it 19 million? I guess that's like can't be right. I joined like right away. I guess it is.
It is.
So
I mean, is it 3 numbers, 6
it's
numbers, 7 numbers?
190 90214.
Sorry, so 190.
902
Yeah.
14.
14.
Mm-hmm.
190. Say it again. 190. Help me out here. 1902.
190 90214.
Oh,
So here's how I joined LinkedIn, because we all had stories, right? I had a candidate for a project manager position that refused to interview with me until I joined LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's 19,090,214.
I'll take it.
That's fine.
Whatever.
But that's how you find out all these things. Kunwar's trying to be funny. I think we're gonna have to do something about that one. But
Sorry, did you say trying, Steve? I'm succeeding, by the way.
Kunwar, I'm gonna tell people your home address if you don't be careful.
All right, I'll leave.
Bye, Kunwar.
Kunwar is a secret weapon of the marketing team. So those are all the questions sent to us, right? So one, I would like people to join into this conversation, not on the chat, but join in and actually let's hear your voice. All you have to do is just identify yourself, and Kunwar will make you a panelist. Second, if anyone has any direct questions, fire them our way, because that's what we're here to help with.
I still think I want to go to. I still think, after you've done as much as you can to get to someone and they're not getting to you, or you have just a bad experience. Like, here's a good one. A good friend of ours in California shared with me the rejection letter he received. Dear, and it literally had the first name field. It was so great getting on a video chat with you. The guy, he told me, I never had it. There was no video chat. And this recruiter sent this same email to everybody, and they all seem to find each other and share it. Don't be freaking stupid. You remember years ago, our dearly departed, our lovely Derek Zeller and I wrote an article on Recruiting Daily called "My Name Is Not Candidate."
Yep.
I don't know about everybody here, but the first thing, I mean, if you refer to human beings when you're working as candidates, change it. Change the narrative to humans, people. Don't use human resources, talent, candidate. Call them what they are. They're humans. They're people. You wouldn't, you really want to be able to. I'm sorry for Paul. Paul is going to.
We gotta get Paul on camera. Can we get Paul on camera?
He's telling me he's switching his shirt to a Gopher shirt. What are you doing, Paul?
Some people like to be associated
Paul,
with
you're the Minnesota headhunter. You need to know how to turn your camera on.
I know. I don't see people until they come on camera.
There's a delay here, Steve. Just slow your roll.
I'm just thinking it's Kunwar's fault.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hold on, let me get that gold M in there.
It's Gopher time, baby. It's Gopher time.
Can we?
What do you think?
Can we talk a bit about posting that I am dismayed that I was let go from my recruiter role today, and if anyone has a job, they should let me know. And can we start suggesting that they say, here's what I do, here's the role I'm looking for, here I'm looking for remote, hybrid, return to office, because it's not helping them. I don't know how to help you if you don't say like who you are, what you do, who you recruit for, what industry you're in. And then I have a second one before you jump in, Steve. And let's be honest, there are two sets of profiles that tend to suck the most on LinkedIn: marketing people, sourcers, and recruiters. Like, we need our LinkedIn profile to actually be like we would hope our candidates' profiles would be. Like, reverse engineer this. Can you all talk about that, please?
Absolutely, that is so good.
Okay. The first one, let's do this for the community. Let's create an open to work template. To your point, Paul, that people can use. Use this, fill it in like this, do a post. Everything you said, Paul.
So what I think is missing is exactly what Paul said. It's again, reverse engineer, think like a social, think how you're going to be found, right? It's when I look at recruiters' profiles specifically, right, there's not a lot of information on there. And so I like to see, when I'm looking at recruiters, what did they recruit for, like various positions. And I know recruiters keep that off because they don't want to get bombarded in the Java engineer search, but what did you recruit for? What did you're good at? Even put in your KPIs and metrics, which not a lot of people like track or whatever. But like, if you are a legit recruiter that's looking for work and you had a high response rate and you had a high hire rate, or you led the team in XYZ KPI, then man, put that shit out there. Like,
who did you report to? How many people have you hired? What were those titles?
What awards did you win? Whatever, you know what I mean? Like, there is, like, you want to know marketing, right? Put your spin around it. So that is absolutely true. And I think that's so good and so missing. And I know a lot of brilliant people in this chat and a lot of brilliant people in our industry who are very successful at speaking at events and writing articles and stuff like that. But you don't see that on their LinkedIn profile. And the internet's a very crowded place, y'all. So again, brag about your work, because a lot of you on this call have given some really, really good advice, man. Make it easier for people to see it.
You know, the reticence, I think, from many, they're not reticent to do a post like that. I think they're reticent to have someone in their company, even after the fact, call them out.
Mm-hmm.
And
David said something very good too. If people want to take a moment to read that, I do think the open to work banner is a judgment thing. I really, really do. Like,
let's read it for folks who haven't seen it. This is Mr. Marr. I also pulled down my open to work banner. I'm not a fan of it, and I think it allows companies to judge you for all the stigmas when you're not working at present, and it has nothing to do with your skills or performance, and is purely a senior leadership decision. In my opinion, should be able to redeploy TA talent. We are talent brokers, talent agents.
Here's the thing. Our industry seems to have the shortest memory of any, right? We go through these, Shannon, can we swear? Because it's being recorded, I want to be polite. We go through as candidates these horseshit candidate experiences that we don't end up changing when we get to the other side. Correct. We have an open to work banner on our profile when we are open to work, but then we judge people when we are on the other side. Like, for the love of all things Goldie Gopher, we have got to get over ourselves. Like, this is, there's three phrases in our industry that I can't stand. I can't stand human resources. I can't stand talent acquisition, and don't even freaking say human capital in my presence, because I will punch you out. Here's the thing. While I don't like the phrases because I think it gives us like an 1800s industrial revolution that we're all replaceable cogs in a wheel. Yeah. We also forget the part about being human. And so now I'm trying to be really polite about this, but like, some of the stuff is coming back to us that we've been doing to others. Okay. And now we're the ones who are on the receiving end of it. And when we go, like, it's a simple concept. The next time anyone speaks at a recruiter and HR event, ask a room full of your peers, how many of you like your job descriptions? My experience in Minneapolis and the Midwest, it's less than 25%. But then we never change them when we get there. And then you say, how many of you liked your candidate experience? It's usually less than 50%. So more than 50% didn't enjoy it and then didn't change it when they got to the other side. What in the hell?
I'm going to take that one step further, Paul, because what makes me really emotional and really sad is when there's judgment based on neurodiversity or diversity in general, right? And this is the problem of not looking at LinkedIn profiles, right? Because certain individuals don't tell a full story because they simply just aren't capable of, or they're not wired the same way that you might be. If you ever heard Glenn Cathy speak about introversion, there's a million recordings of him. Go to YouTube right now and just listen to it. It will be an hour long. It feels like you're going to watch it for 10 minutes. It is 100% worth your time. But I feel like, too, a lot of people get judged, and I've seen this based on candidates that might have a neurodiversity. We've seen certain big brands build software that get adopted by recruiters that rule out candidates with disabilities, right? Because you're dyslexic, or you might not be making eye contact, or you might be autistic. You know, there are so many great recruiters out there that I would say, I bet that 60 to 70% of recruiters have a neurodiversity, first off. But I've seen a lot of those recruiters as well disqualify candidates because of a neurodiverse trait, right? Or they let hiring managers disqualify candidates for that same reason. And I just want to say something about that too. You are represented by the hiring manager that you recruit for. And if you have a hiring manager that's not working on your behalf, or is not working for the company, and you see them treating candidates unfairly, that is your responsibility as a recruiter to stand up to that hiring manager and really educate them on why they're doing what they're doing is wrong and incorrect. And I just want to make that clear, because I think, Paul, you're absolutely right. But I see it also time and time again when it comes to candidates that might be awkward on the phone, or not talkative, or didn't make eye contact, or jumbled their words, right? I think I was, how it took me 3 years to stand up at a SourceCon conference and say, hey, your editor-in-chief has dyslexia, right? And Cindy Davis was the one who motivated me to say that, because I was so worried that the community would judge me. Not like anyone would judge me, but I was worried that, like, oh gosh, you guys have an editor that is dyslexic.
Shannon, how many people walked up to you or mentioned to you, or like a month or two later said, hey, yeah, and so am I?
Dozens. Yeah. And guess what? I had no clue. It's not like a sleeve. It's not like a sign we wear on our head, right? Yeah.
And here's a funny one.
Like,
when Cindy did her little chat, Cindy Davis did her neurodiversity.
One of the most beautiful sessions I've ever seen in my life.
It was wonderful. I go up to her later. I go, you know, Cindy, I've obviously been on the spectrum my whole life. She looks at me, bats her eyes, and goes, I know. I go, why didn't you say anything? And she just laughed at me. But you know, the beauty, the thing is, my contention is, and there's no data to support this other than stuff that's apocryphal. It's the bulk of this profession is somewhere on the neurodiverse scale, somewhere. And, you know, I think by virtue of that, or one impact of that is we are reticent to, you know, call people out. And by calling, it has a bad connotation, calling people out. But, you know, the only way you're going to fix a problem is to recognize the problem.
Yep.
And if we're not going to, you know, extemporize to our community, to heads of TA, to heads of company, that how they're treating human beings is impacting their performance. Let's get down to brass tacks. Who will?
Mm-hmm. Hey, there's Mike. Mike, you're on mute, but I want to hear your story. You're still on mute.
Mike, can't hear you.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Sorry, I missed our call earlier.
It's okay. That's okay. We'll talk tomorrow. I just wanted to say, you know, you guys are inspiring me to share. So I too have anxiety, and I've had it my whole life. I've shared it with Shannon and Steve, and I'm thinking of writing a recruiting daily article on this topic about why it's so important to be unafraid about sharing it. And just to hear you three, I know that you guys are talking about it with unashamed, because you shouldn't be ashamed of it. It's such a powerful thing. And I'm just so grateful for you three, because you really inspire me. And I remember that session from Cindy, and it touched my heart.
It did too. I think what was so beautiful,
so amazing it was.
Yeah, that session was, you know, first off, she was so nervous before, and then after she finished early, and then it was like one person stood up and was like, I have autism, and then someone else stood up, and then it was like, then the whole room is standing up and like shouting their neurodiversity, and you can tell it was like that relief of everyone. It's like, it's that coming off of everyone's chest, and it was just so beautiful. And it's like talk about community right there. That room was all connected, and it was like, God, you can't replicate that too. And it's like I cried. I looked at Steve and I was like, this is the most beautiful session I've ever been a part of.
I mean, this was a captain, my captain, carpe diem moment.
Yeah.
And it was.
on Atlanta 2019.
And we just have to remind ourselves, guys, we have been through hell and back these last 3 years, ever since COVID. And it's just the pendulum swing has been so hard for recruiters. And we got to help our own. We have to stand up to these bad candidate experiences as well. I mean, don't be afraid to speak up. This is good stuff. And we have to protect each other. It's some of the most powerful community members are the ones who are giving back. And I just did my 3rd SourceCon presentation, and
awesome, Mike.
I was talking about data and sharing the data of what had happened these past 3 years and why we felt the way we did. It's, there's so many things we've been feeling. And so don't blame yourself. Don't feel bad if you've been feeling some mental health challenges as a result of these past 3 years, because if you've been anywhere in TA, you've been stressed, you've been overwhelmed, you've been facing challenges. So give yourself some credit. You've faced down one of the toughest markets in history from an employment perspective. It has not been easy. Let's just say what it is. That's what it is.
On top of that, Mike, when you think of our definition of a recruiter, no, maybe, no. Referral from the CEO's daughter, no, yes. We have to give what is essentially, we view it as bad news every day.
Yep.
Who gives us good news?
Yep.
I was joking. So this is before I met, or before Troy and I started dating, but I tried doing online dating during COVID. And so if you take the number of times you took a no in candidate recruiting, you took a no in biz dev, and you took a no in your dating life. For me, though, right, most of it's just I got numb to it a long time ago, because there was a guy in the early 2000s who said to me, he was a West Coast search firm, old gray-haired guy, and I'm saying that politely given the context that we were in that day. And he's like, Paul, I'm going to give you some advice that's going to change your career if you stay in this. And I go, what's that? And he goes, if you can get good with being told no 98 of 100 times a month, you're going to make 6 figures. And he goes, can you handle that? And I'm like, I don't know, but I need to try, right? Like, it's just how it is. I put a LinkedIn profile in the chat. Christina Proctor was someone who I met in Minneapolis back in 2005 or 8. She's now in North Carolina, and she had seen me. We had a conversation about some career stuff a number of years ago. She's now coaching in the ADHD neurodivergent space, both for humans, us people, and then also in the workplace too. And we started nerding out last week. It's our second time we've had a call. And she started pointing out to me about how I may not see the pattern in resumes that she, as someone who has ADHD, might. And she was walking me through, she goes, because you think this person's jumped around from this role to this role, and you think you might label them as a job jumper. She goes, no. She goes, this makes complete sense. She goes, if you could see the pattern, she goes, but you don't. She goes, but neurodivergent people can see patterns that you can't see. Yeah. And I sat there and I went, when are we going to do that session together? When are you going to teach someone like me and then a bunch of my friends?
Well, you grow up with a I mean, when I grew up in the 80s and stuff, like, to have a neurodiversity meant you were stupid. Like, I got sent to special needs classes, you know? Wow. And like, I wasn't your, I mean, it wasn't like tests weren't designed for people who get their numbers mixed up. I didn't learn how to read till I was 9 because, it was, I couldn't pronounce the words correctly because I would get a jumble of the letters. It wasn't until I think I was probably in middle school where I realized, like, I'm not an idiot. It's just, I just learned differently. And so I think Paul, still have that same, mindset. Now it's totally different. Like I'm interviewing for schools for my son, and they have like neurodiverse like task force that follows kids around and helps them. It's like, it's so beautiful
cool.
nowadays. But yeah, I still think that people still think that neurodiversity equals a lack of intelligence, but it's exact opposite. It's actually a highly intelligent person tends to be more neurodiverse.
It goes in so many different directions. I mean, I was not really the
So
opposite, but
amazingly true.
I was skip grades early on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm shy as, first born to Jewish parents, I had guilt from the day I was born, not being good enough. And but so I'm skip grades and I'm socially inept. I don't think I became good at any of these until I matured right around the age of 51 or 52. Newsflash, that's when men tend to mature. But I just, a massive stutter. And it took years of finally getting to the point where I just forgave myself. When you
I love your stuttering. It's so endearing.
So, yeah, and so it must have been the chlorine, Shannon. So, when you reach that I don't give a crap phase of life. And Paul, you and I have known each other close to 25 years now, I guess. And I've been following your dating scenes for so many years.
Thankfully, they're stable now. Well, there's
Thankfully
not a dating
they are,
scene.
and
It's not a dating scene. Maybe that's the better way of phrasing it.
Oh, and I understand, and I did receive the Facebook friend request. So, I digress.
Oh, she's not on this month's calendar.
Gosh.
There was a really good posting. I don't know if any of you follow Stephen Kreider, an amazing recruiter. Oh my gosh. He put out a posting about job hopping, and he was talking about we need to get rid of the term job hopping or something along these lines.
Yeah.
And then he went into, the last few years about why the job hopping of one of his candidates, COVID related, economy related. But the person had kept consistent roles and contract ended. And he basically said, let's start seeing people for the humans that they are and not the job hopper, because it's such an amazing concept. But this is where neurodivergent people can help, because it's so freaking important to make sure that we're seeing the whole person. I mean, it's becoming more and more important as we go. Some people just don't know how to write resumes. If they have spelling errors on their resume, they may not spell the right way, but you get them in front of a client. Dang, that person's amazing. So it's like, you know what I mean? I think there's things like this we kind of have to stand up to. And sometimes it's just bad hiring managers and bad recruiting processes. And if you're the victim of one of those as a recruiter who's been laid off, please say something. Please call it out and say it specifically on your LinkedIn. You don't have to necessarily social shame the company. I wouldn't recommend that necessarily, but do call out that we need to be doing better. If you experience a bad experience, put that experience out there, and people will relate to it.
Exactly. I think that's right. I think it's a good community move. People relate to it and they can understand it. And it's like, it's also nice to know that people aren't alone, because when you get rejected, when you get ghosted, like you there's that sense of like not belonging. There's that sense of like abandonment and, rejection that cuts deep. And then there's a rejection, Paul, like you're talking about, right? With no, stuff like that too. But there's a rejection when it's like your livelihood feels like it's on the line, because you're like, when am I going to get hired? Am I a bad recruiter because no one will hire me? Absolutely not.
Oh my God.
But you think
it's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
You didn't
important.
Look, unless you came up with a strategy that led to the hiring of, a fivefold increase in the hiring of recruiters, et cetera. And then you realize that your earnings report, you miss earnings by a penny. So then we now have to reduce G&A, which, by the way, has no bearing on future profitability, study after study after study. And then you don't even give these people a chance to figure out where else, I wrote a post earlier today, and I put it in the
so
chat
awesome
about but it's
so good.
It's using your voice for good. We're not called to your mind. Don't call people out call out the behavior.
That's right.
If you're
That's
not
what I was
comfortable
talking about.
mentioning the company, call out the behavior. I recently applied for a job. You can put some stuff there, and this is how it turned out. Timeline. I received this. Take the names out. Don't do a full on Amy Miller on people, but or maybe, but call it out. It's not going to put you into a black book. It's going to resonate throughout the community, and eventually it's going to seep into someone's brain.
I think I said this when I was an editor at SourceCon, and it's still relevant today. Everyone has a voice and everyone has something to share. And I think people feel like I'm just an average recruiter. I do things exactly the same way as everyone else. How can I be any different? Until you start sharing what makes you unique by just sharing what you do on a daily basis. And you will meet so many people that either do it like you or have learned from you, and that's what makes it special. And I think that's something that's missing right now too, is that the common talking. I think COVID ruined so much for us from like a community standpoint, because there was several communities going on within this industry, and I think we all kind of got boggled down with COVID. We all kind of got sick of the online stuff, but I think like we all have that calling to get back into it. And I think the more we share, good, bad, or ugly, the better that's going to become. I think David Marr is doing a great job of doing that and tagging those open positions and stuff like that. I think we need to do more of it. Mike, you're starting podcasts, like Paul sharing is your middle name. But I think we can do better and get back into that. And I think the worst mistake people can make is when you feel like you have no value to add. Trust me, it's like, for example, case in point, quick story. When I took a head of marketing job with zero marketing experience, right? I was so intimidated to start networking with other CMOs in the space in our industry. I would say once I started doing that, just to learn terminology and team structure and what I need and stuff like that, all those people I network with are now coming to me for advice because I know our industry so well. And that's my competitive advantage. And so, whereas, how many heads of marketing that, you guys know that have come up as recruiters, but again, I was so intimidated. I forgot that I know this industry like the back of my hand, and I'm constantly learning every single day. But it was good to know that, like, wow, I do have something to add. It just looks a lot different than what they have to add. So I can't stand on the soapbox and be like, I have 25 years of experience in marketing, but I can say I have 10+ years recruiting.
But then you can also say employment branding, marketing.
Recruiting is marketing. Trust me, you guys are all experienced marketers.
I've got a quick anecdote for you, then I'll back out. Because first of all, Shannon and Steve, thank you for doing this, and I hope you keep doing it.
We will.
Second, it's nice to see Mike again. It's only been 2 weeks, not even, I suppose, since Minneapolis. Twin City Startup Week was also during SourceCon. It kind of overlapped. And I was at a sort of an HR recruiting startup session. And the person who I was talking to, I knew really well. So let's assume that they are Shannon and Steve. So for the sake of this conversation, I'm only speaking to the two of you, and anyone else who hears this has to give me some leeway for context. And she asked me, how am I doing? And I had this non-response. And she's like, okay, Paul, how are you really doing? And I didn't want to answer. And then she says, like, what's going on? I go, I'm fucking exhausted. Yeah. I said, but I don't like to talk about it because I'm a middle-aged white guy. If I'm fucking tired, how is everybody else doing? Right? So we were having this conversation, and I said that it feels to me that a lot of people in my sphere are burdened. And she says, tell me more about that. And so I did. And she says, I'm going to give you a different word. She goes, start using the word heavy. She goes, most people are feeling heavy, whether it's socioeconomic, whether it's political, whether it just the jobs, like just whatever. And we end up chatting for 45 minutes afterwards, and we hadn't seen each other in, I don't know, 5-7 years, because it was pre-COVID, a number of years before COVID. And so it's this concept that you all are doing is we need to remind people that we've got stuff going on too. And I mean it in the sense of to let everybody else know. So if they are feeling a certain way, it's okay.
Yeah.
right? That Christina that I mentioned earlier, like she really opened my eyes to some things. And if we don't ask these questions and if we don't share these things and then try to provide some guidance, because while I am highly opinionated about some of the things I said earlier about how some of us are doing our job search and we're promoting ourselves, I also do have in the back of my brain that we're also tired and we're feeling a little bit heavy and we're stressed. And maybe somebody hasn't had a job in 9 months and they're the breadwinner of a family and they've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
Right. So I also have to remind myself that while I'm a highly opinionated jerk 25 minutes ago, I also have to have some grace. And we also have to give people tools. And Steve, your idea of let's come up with a template for how someone should, I've got 2 non-recruiter ones that I'll send you and I'll work on you with that. And we can post that next week.
Yeah. Be good talking to you again.
So I miss you both. Mike, I don't miss you yet because it's only been 10 days.
It's okay.
No, Paul, are we supposed to be in Nashville like this week? Or come on. Ugh.
That is the calendar, by the way. That's Leaper's Fork up there on the calendar in black and white from Tori and I's trip last fall.
I love it. I'm going to end here. This conversation, will continue. This is exactly what I envisioned recruiter therapy to be. If you want to be a guest, come on with us. If you want to participate in the chat, let's light it up, right? But every few weeks, let's get together. Let's hash this out. I think the worst thing that can happen is all the good ideas that we generated with this, they fall dead. Then this was not a successful first episode.
Yeah.
Our second episode.
The third, second. And if you want to join us in this crusade and just help people, and if you're not sure how to go by it, if you want to collaborate on posts that you feel in your heart, we will do that. Everyone here is good at doing collaborative writing.
All three of you guys. I couldn't think of 3 better people to spearhead this stuff.
Mike, real quick, drop your podcast LinkedIn or your URL for it. Sorry, your URL. Where can we find it?
Yeah.
It's let me get that. Hold on. It's actually on my LinkedIn page, but I'll grab it.
Okay.
And a person here, I don't want to call her out, but I'm going to do it anyway because she's a good egg. She was another person who sent a topic in, Nicole Foley. Talk about a strong person. Nicole's story. I will let her at a future date tell it. It's very compelling, and it speaks to how companies treat people who've been reffed, and what they do and what they don't do. And her story is particularly good. Connect with her. She's up in Massachusetts. I know because I called her out of the blue. Well, I got her cell phone. I called her out of the blue, and but her story is really good, and it's no different than anyone else who has been let go. I mean, everybody has life circumstances that we're balancing, that we're juggling, that are important to us. But companies need to be aware, and it's almost like the movie Network from many, many decades ago. I think Paul is the only one who may know it here. When Jason Robards, he's the only one who's old enough to know it. When Jason Robards said, "I'm sick and tired, and I'm just not going to take it any longer." We have that power as a community to teach the unteachable. Let's do it.
I love that. What a great way to end. Thank you everyone for participating. We'll get a date on the calendar for the next one. Steve might be leading without me, but that's okay. And again, y'all take care.
Bye.
See you.
Goodbye.